Okay, here we go. Let's get into it. This camera's a mess. Okay, here we go. All right, guys, welcome. Sorry for the delay. I had some issues with my camera. It looked a little fuzzy, but I think it's good now. Let me make sure I put up the banner really quick. There we go. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what was going on. Like my camera was doing this thing. Anywho, welcome to the Sabby Sab show at RBN. I have a pretty interesting show for you guys today. I hope you like these topics here. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it because I have a lot to say. A lot to say about at least the second topic, the one I'm going to discuss second. So tonight I'm going to discuss Briahna Joy Gray and Robbie Soave Vigilante debate. If you have not heard about that story about the 13-year-old little boy that was killed by a homeowner, I'm going to get into that. I have so much to say about that discussion. And I'm also going to discuss Alabama Homes for All. I don't know if you're aware of what they are doing in Alabama, but this is actually a pretty huge story that I think a lot of people may not know about. So I'm going to discuss those two topics tonight. Want to go ahead and give a couple of shout outs to people in the chat, and then I want to get started because I have a lot to say, like I said. Shout out to Old Man says, doobie doobie doo a. What's going on? Sean says, you're. Shout out to Bryce says, back again for more RBN fun. Greetings, Terry says, greetings, beautiful RBN fam. Shout out to Sudoku or Sakudo. Almost said Sudoku's a game. Says, what's good, y'all? Greetings, Zach says, hey, Sabby and RBN fam. Shout out to Wary says, hey, everybody. Greetings, Meow says, hi, friends. Yay, finally making it for a live stream. It's been a little bit. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, let's go ahead and get into it because I want to make sure I do not run out of time here because these discussions are pretty interesting. I want to get started with this story that's happening in Alabama about homes for all. So one of the ways that some cities are choosing to solve the homeless crisis is by building what I would call a smaller version of a tiny home, so to speak. There's pros and cons to this. I'm going to get into all of that as well. But first and foremost, I want to share something from Garland Nixon. Now, Garland Nixon, he made a video about the homelessness crisis in the United States. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for that because for those who are not aware, Garland Nixon is a part of this event that is coming up in DC in February called Rage Against the War Machine. So he's going to be one of the speakers there. And he puts some really interesting points or mentions some really interesting points in this video about the homelessness crisis that we have in this country and the billions and billions of dollars that is given to the military industrial complex instead. So if you are curious or had any wonders about just how bad the homelessness crisis is in the US, take a listen to this video here from Garland Nixon.
This is the U.S. empire. Look at that. Shanty towns. People live in these things. They find pieces of cardboard. Look at that, an old boat. Look at the streets. This is the U.S. empire. This is the country. And this is the United States. These people live in this right now. Look at this. This is the country that we live in. This is the country that just is in the process of spending $858 billion on the military industrial complex right now. Look at the streets. The stores are closed everywhere, just collapsed. Look on both sides of the streets. Businesses closed. One of the things that exacerbated this was the lockdowns. People couldn't work. They couldn't make a living. So the last 3 years has took a dramatic turn. This is the United States. What the hell are we doing? Sending all of this money to Ukraine. That's it. That's Oakland, California. Shack, shanty towns, garbage, poverty. Look at that. That's America. That's what we got now. People have nothing. Is that the great shining country on the hill? Old RVs that they built in there. People are living. Cars. People have cars. People drive that over there because they have jobs, but they don't have a house. Look at this place. This is the United States. This is what we're looking at now. I think you've seen enough. You looked at those pictures. Is that a country that is going to collapse? Is that a country that may be collapsing? Or is that a country that has collapsed? It's Ukraine. It's a military outpost. That's what it is. Cold, hard reality. It's a military. People can say it has about religion or ethnicity or this group, but we're giving billions to that military outpost while the country looks like this.
It is a sad but true reality that the homelessness situation in this country has just steadily increased throughout the years. And Garland Nixon there is spot on about the fact that you do have these issues where so much money has gone to the military industrial complex when we could be using money like that to solve the homelessness issue in this country. But what are states like Alabama trying to do? Let's get right into it. Now, this is actually from the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. I want to show you what they have been working on for people there. So obviously, one of the big things to fix homelessness is to give people homes, right? So they're giving people homes, but these are temporary units. And some people, have some criticism to say. So let me go ahead and get into this piece here. So this is the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. His name is Randall Woodfin. So he said, announcing Home for All. We are launching a project, Home for All, to provide dignified and safe housing units and wraparound services to residents in need. Each unit is lockable, heated, cooled, and furnished with a desk and a bed. So I want to click on the pictures here just to show you so you can get a pretty good image of what it looks like. This kind of reminds me of a storage unit or a shed that you would see in someone's backyard where they may keep like the snowmobile, or where they may keep rakes, things like that. That's basically what this is. These are like just little sheds, and you can see there's a bed here. And he also said that they're heated and they're cooled. So these little sheds have like AC, and they have heating as well. And they have several of these throughout Birmingham, Alabama. You can see they have a little chair here. So they can, I guess, in a way, have kind of like their own front yard without the actual yard. But it basically has created this shed-like community. And I'm sorry if I'm calling them sheds, but that's exactly what this looks like to me. So this is what they are trying to do in Alabama. Now, he goes on to say, we've heard from y'all, our neighbors experiencing homelessness, and local service providers about the need for temporary housing for those experiencing homelessness, paired with wraparound services that identify needs, address them, and helps transition them into permanent housing. He goes on to say, this shelter community will follow the leads of cities like Dallas, Fresno, and Tacoma, who have been able to build shelter communities serving thousands of people. Everyone deserves to have safe shelter. This project, which will be presenting to the city council next week, is a step forward in the fight for a more equitable and just society that protects all of our people. Now, one of the things that has been pointed out about these particular units is that they may not be weatherproof. So, for example, strong winds, these may not withstand that, right? But I guess the idea is the fact that this is supposed to be a temporary shelter anyway. This is where people are supposed to be able to go until they can find some type of permanent housing. So just keep that in mind. But there are critics. There are critics of this. I mean, I will say shout out to Birmingham, Alabama for at least trying to do something. But as I said, there are critics. And I do want you to see what other people are saying about this situation. Let me make sure I pull this up here, because there's an entire article that actually is against this type of initiative. So let me go ahead and share this piece, because like I said, you know, it's not just Birmingham, Alabama. Other places are doing this as well. I think it shared the wrong screen. It sure did. Let's try that again. Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. So I want you to take a look at this article here. Now, it says pallets profits soar alongside demand for temporary tiny homes. So again, not just Birmingham, Alabama. I'm actually going to make this just a little bit larger. There we go. And you can see there's a whole community of them here. Entire community. Thank you so much. James says, love what you do. Sabby, all power to RBN. Workers must unite. Peace and a better new year. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the super sticker, James Starks. So let's get into it. It says, they're expensive shoe boxes. See, I told you some people are critical of it. Their expensive shoe boxes for homeless people are propping up all over with no accompanying boom in permanent housing options in sight. So let's dive into it. Pallet, the Washington-based for-profit manufacturer of the glorified tool sheds, we've written about it before, has seen a 7,000% growth in demand for its amenity-light temporary housing project. Guys, a 700,000% growth. That's crazy. That goes to show you just how much the homeless rate has increased in this country. Cities up and down the West Coast and throughout the country are turning to them for solutions that offer more safety and stability than a tent on a sidewalk. The problem is that these cramped huts offer only a small step up from that in terms of a quality of life. The minimal improvement comes with an eye-watering price tag. Cities end up blowing their budgets on next to nothing when they could invest just a little more to have safe, affordable, permanent housing options. This is a good piece to mention as well. It's like, is it really worth it to invest this much money into these temporary shed communities, or is it better just to take the money and just create more permanent housing? How much could a 64 square foot shack cost? That's the 48 million question. Jesus. Pallet advertises their 8x8 2-bed shed as costing just under $7,000. But the city of Los Angeles has spent over 48 million on constructing 11 different tiny home villages with 1,252 beds total. That's 662 units at most. So the cost per hut comes at a staggering, and this is over $77 million. So what they're saying in this article is that they could take that $77 million and they could just create permanent housing solutions for homeless people instead of these shed communities. Bill says you get a glorified shed maker getting government money hand over fist. This is an example of capitalists making money off of degrowth. We create more and more homeless people and then find a way to commodify the people being left behind. Yeah, this is very expensive. Like, I don't know, like those of you who are, I don't know, in construction, or those of you who are carpenters, those of you who are good at building things with your hands, you could probably build this same type of shed for a cheaper price, for less than $7,000. But that's not all. There is also over 25 million annual cost to operate these sites. See, this is the piece that a lot of people may not be aware of. Now we're talking about a $3,345 ongoing monthly cost for a one-room shelter made out of plastic. The average rental price in LA for an apartment more than 10 times the size is only $2,661. I like how they say only. And most of those come with such luxury as a private bathroom, kitchen, maybe even a washing machine to boot. The city of LA is not getting its money's worth out of these pallet villages. What do you guys think so far? Tell me in the chat. If you agree with the pallet village, type the number 1. If you disagree, type the number 2. I'm curious. What does that money buy? Not very much. Pallet's tiny shelters include 2 to 4 twin-size beds, a few shelves, a locking door, and locking windows. Optional features include electric hookups to power the two outlets, extra insulation for cold climates, interior lighting, and a heater and an air conditioner. Light, heat, and electricity are optional features. So see, this part right here is important. Light, heat, and electricity are optional. So not every pallet shed actually comes with that. So just keep that in mind as well. I see most of you in the chat are saying 2. So most of you don't think that most of you are not down with this. Kai says that Homes for All project was promoted by our mayor. He's a big old comprador. So it never smells right anytime he puts together some project like this. I wouldn't have high expectations. Okay. Safety features include a fire extinguisher, a smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, emergency second egress hatch. I don't know what that is. In at least some units. If you guys know what this is, an egress hatch, let me know in the chat. The units are also independently inspected by local fire marshals whenever they end up being installed. And Pallet is quick to point this out because more than one of their villages has caught fire in the past. Well, isn't that nice? Bathroom, kitchen, laundry, and common area facilities must be bought separately. A full assembled non-ADA compliant bathroom unit from Pallet with 2 toilets, sink, and showers will cost you about $35,000. You can also get a big, empty 400 or 800 square foot unit for just under $37,000 to fill with whatever you want. Escape hatch. Thank you, Eric. I didn't know what that was. I was like, a what? How much does all of this help? Undeniably, access to pallet shelters and other options like them can positively affect the lives of individuals, but very few people get to see that benefit. Ultimately, temporary housing initiatives like this are a short-term band-aid when we really need a long-term fix. 100%. I agree. While conditions in these tiny plastic sheds may be an improvement for some unhoused people, they are still not suitable enough for comfortable habitation. This is justified as being a short-term, low-cost solution for people transitioning to permanent housing. But we've seen how low cost it is, and it hasn't proven to be very short-term either. Temporary shelter is designed to support a person over a short window of time as they transition into permanent affordable housing. The problem comes when there is no permanent affordable housing for them to transition to. And this is the piece that I think is important and that I think we need to take home. You know, On the surface, if someone says homes for all, we've built this community with this temporary housing, on the surface, it sounds like a good idea. You stay here for a little while till you get back on your feet, and then you can transition into a permanent apartment. The problem is there has to be an apartment available for you to get that you can afford. And when it comes to apartment complexes that are these affordable housing communities, those are not easy to get into. Oftentimes, those communities have a wait list. The same thing with Section 8 housing. People have waited years. People have told me they waited years to get off the wait list for Section 8. So that's the problem. As they mentioned in the article, some of the people are not leaving these units because there's no affordable housing for them to transition into. So it becomes a permanent housing for them instead of being that temporary housing. And this is not something you should stay in permanently. Sean Miller said 2 to 3 year wait. There you go. There you go. EMK says there needs to be housing and jobs, but they've sold us down the river. I agree. 100%. I agree. So this is the problem, right? So if people are not leaving these units and transitioning into permanent housing, then that means that they can't bring in more homeless people to fill those units. If those units are still being occupied, you can't bring in more people off the street to be able to live in those units. That's just something to point out as well. Now, that's the reality for most people using temporary housing options these days. Rather than passing through a temporary program and out of homelessness, the system is backed up. There you go. There's nowhere for these people to move to. They either stay in temporary housing indefinitely or eventually find themselves back out on the streets. So again, this doesn't really solve the problem. What is that, mediocre? And there are no politicians being held accountable for this. That's another part of the problem as well. Isn't it better than nothing, though? Technically, building these expensive and minimal temporary housing options is better than nothing if doing nothing is the alternative. But at the same time, that money could have gone towards other projects that would make much bigger bang for your buck. Take a look at the numbers again. So there you go. Here's those numbers again. $48 million. For just the annual operating costs, the city could have rented out 787 average apartments for a year and still save $48 million. Instead, they got 626 plastic shacks with barely enough room for 2 people to put their shoes on at the same time. Don't get me wrong. Having a private space off the street with easy access to facilities and services is a great thing for people currently living without access to any of those things. But we can do better than this. However, it may not actually be better than nothing in this specific case. Many local activists think that LA is in a rush to build all these temporary tiny villages so that it will once again be allowed to legally enforce its laws against the homelessness. A federal court ruling has prevented the city of LA from ticketing or arresting unhoused people just for camping in public unless there is shelter available to them. You guys see where this is going? The mad dash to buy shelter, to build shelter, any shelter, is all in an effort to reach a point where they can accommodate 60% of the city's homeless population, at which point they believe they'll be allowed to start criminalizing homelessness again. So you see, this goes back to what I try to tell you guys. Oftentimes when you think they're doing something that's going to benefit the people and help the people, there's usually some type of strings attached. That's the string attached. Just another way for them to, again, help out law enforcement, to help the police state. Can't make this up. Now that's Los Angeles, but I also showed you Birmingham, Alabama is doing the same thing. is doing the same thing. I'm going to go to some of the comments here in the chat. Sakudo said, just let us use what we already have. We have a surplus of 200,000 vacant units in LA. Bryce says, boy, does our country hate the poor. This is very true. Very, very true. Sakudo also says Los Angeles has 280,000 vacant units, 80,000 homeless. Easy math. We have enough, but they won't lower the rent. That's right. That's a big part of the problem. They won't lower the rent because, you know, they got to make sure the investors make their money. That's what this is really about. That's why they won't lower it. This is why a lot of cities that used to have rent control no longer have rent control. This is why some cities don't even have rent stability. Boston doesn't have rent stability or rent control. At one point in time, we did have rent control. Who got rid of that? Constant problem throughout the country. Bill says temporary shacks create profit for the capitalists. And then when they can start putting the homeless in jail again, that is free labor. That's right. That's right. These are all connected. It's all connected. EMK, America taught us there would be endless growth as we grew up, but as we became adults, we learned who the growth would be for. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Meow said Portland too. Yeah, it's all over the place. I'm going to check Rockfin really quick just to see if there are comments over there. So give me just a second. I'll pivot on over to the rock to the fin. And let's check this out. Yes, there are comments on Rockfin. Let me just go ahead and pop out that window. I hate how Rockfin does this thing sometimes. Like sometimes it's like there used to be a thing here for me to pop out the comments, and now that's not there anymore. Okay, I'll just read the comments then. I don't know what happened to that option. I like this comment here from, let me see, Nicole. The city of Seattle still has a mandate for city employees and Shama is silent. I voted for her in the first election, so I'm very disappointed that a socialist is not organizing and pushing back against this level of fascism. She instead peddles jab equity as a way to harass Bill Gates. I'm not sure what that has to do with this particular discussion. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong comments. Yeah, Rockfin. Let me zoom out. I'm sorry, you guys. All right. I can zoom out and I can see more. Yeah, I don't like how they did this. They changed this. I used to be able to pop out the comments. Yeah, I don't think these comments are to this video. They're not. So I don't know what's happening with Rockfin here. Let me share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. This is very strange. Rockfin, they usually have, like, when you go onto the site, there's the comments for the video. And for whatever reason, these comments have nothing to do with this video. These are from like days ago, but I can't find the comments to the video that's playing right now. So I don't know what's happening with Rockfin. I don't want to waste time with that though. That's really weird that that's happening though. Strange. Thank you for the super chat. GV Black, urgent breaking news. Support RBN via recurring donations, engagement on the mainstream billionaire apps, etc. And obviously tell all of your friends. Thank you so much for that. Angela said, Rockfin, have you been drinking again? We told you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It's weird. They used to have this little pop out thing, and that was recent. So I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're doing updates over there or something like that. Okay. I want to go ahead and get into this next story here because a couple of people have reached out to me and they were asking me if I could watch this. Like, I was asked so many times. I was like, okay, I have time now. I'm going to finally watch this clip. And after I watched it, I literally just, I couldn't believe what I heard. If you are not aware with what is going on with this 13-year-old little boy, he was shot by a homeowner. And Briahna Joy Gray and Robbie Soave, they talked about this on Rising. And I have to say this. I am very worried by the comments I heard from Robbie. Very worried. Let's get into it.
A 13-year-old boy was shot and killed in Northeast DC at 4 a.m. Saturday morning by a homeowner in the area who claimed the young boy was breaking into vehicles. Karen Blake, a sixth grader, was shot multiple times. Karan Blake, a sixth grader, was shot multiple times, though police say there was no indication that he was armed. When investigators arrived at the scene, the homeowner was found performing CPR on Blake, who was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Let's stop here just for a second. Let's look at this headline. Northeast DC homeowner shoots and kills 13-year-old after claiming he was breaking into cars. So not breaking into the house, breaking into cars. Notice that Bree also just said he was not armed. So let's go on. Let's go on. There's more here.
The hospital. Police have not yet publicly identified the shooter.
Blake's school, Brockland Middle School, shared pictures of him, describing him as a, quote, quiet and inquisitive sixth grader who loved football and fashion. The tragic death has left some members of the community outraged. One local social justice organization tweeted, a grown man shot and killed a 13-year-old boy. DC police has identified the killer, but has decided not to make an arrest or even release the name of the killer. We won't let Mayor Bowser cover up this murder.
All right, I want to pause here for a second because I want to remind you, you need to understand where they are located as well. Where is Rising? Where does it take place? DC. This incident happened in Washington, DC. So just think about that. So for me, if I were sitting there and this happened right in my community, like right in the same city, like I would feel some kind of way. I would feel some kind of way. Robbie don't feel that way. Let's listen to what Robbie had to say. Let me just get into it.
This could, I think, end up being a pretty divisive story, or a story with a lot of people on the other sides. I mean, he was, according to the person who shot him.
According to the person who shot him.
He was, they were trying to steal cars or break into cars. He was with, well, I mean, I read the local news story. He was with two other people. This is 4 a.m. and they were cited in a car that is their getaway car was a stolen car. It was on that street.
I have to pause it here for just a second because I want to point out something. Let's all remember that right now you only have one account of this story. That account is from the homeowner. You see, the teenage boy, we don't have his account because he's dead. We don't have other eyewitnesses' accounts so far. We have one person's side of the story, and that's the person who is the homeowner who shot and killed the boy. Keep that in mind. And I say this because notice how when you hear the way that Robbie responds, Robbie is going to respond to this in such a way as though he has already decided that the homeowner's word is gold. As though he has already decided that the homeowner was telling the truth. There are two sides to a story. And how many times have we seen in cases, at least with police brutality cases, where the police department has their version of the story, and then you find out weeks or months later that there were some lies in there tucked away? But what is interesting is how quickly, even though Briahna told him that person's side of the story, how quickly he is ready to believe and then go on to defend the homeowner. Let's go on. There's more.
That had been stolen from that street, and that they were, the theory being that they were trying to steal other cars. Obviously, we have to know more about exactly what happened, but that's some context for this.
My feeling is that I don't especially need to know more about what happened, because the penalty for stealing a car is not the death penalty.
That piece right there. Now, again, listen to what he says about not having all the details. Listen to this.
We have to know more about exactly what happened, but
obviously we have to know more about what happened. But he had already decided to believe the homeowner, even though he goes on to tell you we need to know more about what happened. You see how that works?
that's some context for this.
My feeling is that I don't especially need to know more about what happened, because the penalty for stealing a car is not the death penalty. And so the idea that a civilian would take it upon themselves to end somebody's life because they saw a car being stolen, maybe not even their car, it suggests to me that there is a pretty significant devaluing of human life and a confusion of what priorities should be.
Is the homeowner Batman? Are there vigilantes in DC? Like, well, what is happening here? It is not okay for people to take the law in their own hands. This is my thing. If you saw someone breaking into a car, don't even know if it was their car, by the way. Isn't that what the police are for? Isn't that when you pick up the phone and you call the police and say, hey, someone's breaking into this car? How many times are we going to go through this again, where people take the law into their own hands? Remember what happened with Trayvon Martin? Remember that? How George Zimmerman decided to handle it himself, even though the police told him on the call to stay inside the house. Let's go on.
If you don't want a car to be stolen, call the police.
But don't you complain about the police? This is a crime that the police, what if they don't do anything about it? They underserve minority communities.
Robbie's bullshitting here. This is Robbie. See what he's trying to do? This is Robbie trying to defend the homeowner and make excuses for the homeowner. This is Robbie trying to protect property. This is Robbie trying to protect capital. These are the kind of things, like, I've watched this clip 3 times, but these are the kind of things I want you to pay attention to. He just made an excuse for the homeowner. Well, don't you say the police don't really serve minority communities? No, that's an excuse. So that means the homeowner can just take this into their own hands and just go kill someone? This is dangerous. Like, I'm going to play the rest of it, but I sincerely hope Robbie will come back on Rising and walk back the statements that he makes in this segment, because it's very cringe.
Of course they do. Yeah. And I think that it's likely that the police, frankly, would also shoot in a way that they shouldn't. But the idea that we should outsource criminal justice to vigilantes who are shooting at children in the dark, I don't know that that's a world that any of us want to be in.
I mean, but who are stealing their car? I don't think you have to. Robbie, I don't think you have an obligation to sit back and let your car be stolen.
Yes, you do. You're not allowed to shoot people. If you want to go and try to physically get into a fist fight with someone, if you want to try to shout and flash lights and scare people away, but if you kill somebody,
a car is not like a ham sandwich. It's cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Is it worth more than
My point exactly. You hear what he's saying? A car is not a ham sandwich. It's worth thousands and thousands of dollars. This is Robbie again protecting property. He feels that the property was that much more important. So much important to the point where someone can go outside and play cop and kill someone who's breaking into a car. First of all, let me make something very clear here. Let me make something very clear. The article said this 13-year-old boy, there was no weapon. He had no weapon. So now you have someone shooting someone who was unarmed to begin with. You don't know if the car belonged to the homeowner or not. You don't. So here's someone who sees this happening. They decide to pick up their gun and go outside and just kill the kid. I want to paint that visual for you because I want you to see that is what happened. Then you call the police after the fact. This kid wasn't shot at to injure. This kid was shot. They shot at this kid to kill him. Do you know how dangerous that is? Do you know how dangerous? Let's go back to Ahmaud Arbery, right? When the two white men, or actually three men, chased down Ahmaud Arbery with a gun and killed him, they took the law into their own hands. Is Robbie Soave okay with that too? Let's go back in.
But if you kill somebody,
a car is not like a ham sandwich. It's cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Is it worth more than a 13-year-old's life?
But the 13-year-old, the person stealing the car is the aggressor. They chose.
Is it worth more than a 13-year-old's life? That's just a yes or no answer. His response is, but the 13-year-old boy is the aggressor. Being aggressive to who? The car? Do you see what I'm saying? The 13-year-old boy did not attack the homeowner. The 13-year-old boy, supposedly, again, we only have one account of the story, was supposedly breaking into a car.
Chose to steal a very valuable piece of property, maybe something you can't get to your job without. Maybe
and they deserve to be dead?
What do you mean? They started it. They initiated it.
And they deserve to die.
I don't think it's unreasonable to defend your car being stolen with lethal force.
If your position.
What the actual hell did I just hear? What the hell was that? I'm trying to be careful with the profanity, you guys. Can you believe what you just heard? Let's play it again. Let's play it again. This is a mess.
They deserve to be dead?
What do you mean? They started it. They initiated it.
And they deserve to die.
I don't think it's unreasonable to defend your car being stolen with lethal force.
If your position.
You heard it, folks. His words, not mine. He doesn't think it's bad to defend your car with lethal force. What the hell is wrong with Robbie?
Is that the punishment for stealing a car is that you are killed, then that's your position. That is not my position.
Not the punishment. I think you should be allowed to try to stop it.
Okay. If you think that you should be able to use lethal force to stop a non-lethal crime, then that is a position that you will have to defend, but is not a position that I share and one that I think is morally defensible.
You know, I can tell that Bree is holding in a lot right here. I can tell that Bree is holding in a lot because there might have been some other things that she might have wanted to say. I'm just going to say here, the lack of the audacity for Robbie to say what he said in such a careless way. No empathy. No type of compassion, just robotic. And this goes back to what I've said before. How you really do have people in this country that really think that property value is more. They should value property over human life. If Robbie feels that you should have the right to stop it, that is what the police are for. That is why you pick up the phone and you call the police and say, hey, hey, hey. In the meantime, that homeowner could have taken a picture of the license plate, could have at least written down the numbers of the license plate, and the police would have caught the car. But to me, the fact that property to him, the property is more important. Do you get that? This is the mindset that a lot of people have in this country, in a colonized country. Do you see how it works? It still continues through history. It's still happening today. Property more important.
A 13-year-old child is dead. People talk about, we have had conservative, I'm not saying you, but we have had conservatives defend the Stanford prospective rapist as a kid who don't want him to lose his swimming contract, his swimming scholarship at Stanford. You know, people make mistakes. You know, she was drunk. You know, he was just trying to have
Stanford guy got put away.
But not before being defended by a lot of people. People have obviously defended Kyle Rittenhouse for taking a gun into a conflict zone and saying, well, oh, you know, things happen. You know, he didn't deserve to be killed. No one should have shot him. Nobody should. And he was perfectly meritorious in shooting and killing other people.
Bree's saying this in the most polite way possible. She's not going to say it, so I'm just going to go ahead and say these words, what she's trying to get across here. Basically, what she's saying is when there are white boys who commit crimes, there tends to be this type of response from the public as to see they made a mistake or they were going through a rough time, or they'll blame their victim, or they'll come anything that they could come up with to defend the criminal. On the other hand, when it is a black boy who commits the crime, the American public, for the most part, does not give it any benefit of the doubt. Once they say you were wrong, you were guilty, it is automatically believed. And I hate to say it, but Robbie is doing that right now because they told you at the beginning of the episode, they said, this is just that one homeowner's account of the story. The boy is dead, so you won't get to hear his version of the events. So when and some people do this intentionally and some people do not, but I really want to drive this home because I want to make a point here. Some people don't even realize that they're doing it when they do it because we live in a country, again, a colonized country. So you have to decolonize your mind where you can even do this subconsciously and not realize you're doing it. When it is the black boy, you are willing to take one account of the story and just say, yes, what was done was right to be done. But when it is a white boy who has done these crimes, worse crimes than what this kid did, this kid was breaking into a car trying to steal a car. Okay? There are so many excuses. You are ready to come and defend. They cannot be in the wrong. Something else must have happened. All these excuses come out and you are to protect them because you are taught that from the day that you were born in this country, that white is right and black is wrong. Whether it is movies, whether it's TV shows, whether it's literature, it's ingrained in you. And the fact that Robbie can sit here and actually pretend like it doesn't even matter that this kid is dead, that it is more important that you protect your car, whether it was their car or not. The property has more value than this boy's life. That is the problem. I couldn't have had this conversation with Robbie. I commend Bree for having this conversation. I would not have been as calm. No way. No way in hell. Because I have family members that have had to deal with shit like this. When I was first asked to watch this clip, I was like, why does everybody keep telling me to watch this clip? Multiple people emailed me. People DM me and said, please watch this clip. And I'm like, okay, I'll finally watch the clip. And then after I watched the clip, I'm like, holy crap. Now I know why you guys kept telling me to watch the clip. I am so angry. The lack of disrespect. And you sit there, Robbie, at the same desk with this black woman, and you sit there and have you learned anything about the plight of Black Americans in all your conversations with Bree, in all your conversations when Olamide was sitting there next to you? Have you learned anything?
It is striking to me that there would be any controversy around the obvious truth, it seems to me, that you should not vigilante style shoot down people who are trying to commit a property crime and in effect sentence them to death when if they had been arrested and tried by the police and by the criminal justice system, they would not have been murdered.
Okay, I think you're underplaying the seriousness of the crime he was allegedly going to commit a little bit.
I think you're underplaying the seriousness of what it means to murder a 13-year-old child.
I don't think poor people, working people can't just like having your car stolen is a big deal. You might not get it back.
First of all, you don't know anything about.
So it's more important that you don't get your car back than it is that this kid doesn't get to keep his life. You see, to Robbie, this is a violent crime because it affects property, which to him has more value.
About who was being victimized here, but regardless, you get your car back from someone investigating and finding your car. Joyriding is very common. People joyride in all kinds of communities. Teenagers go and try to find open cars, ride around and abandon them on the side of the road. You can look up statistics about how common this is.
It's very serious and people absolutely should not do it.
No, people shouldn't do it. But you also shouldn't shoot and kill 13-year-old children.
Yeah, I don't think there is a societal obligation to have significant property of yours stolen. You just have to sit back and watch it happen. I don't think that.
Do you see the smugness? He does not even care. This means nothing to him. Let me tell you guys, and I got to go soon because I'm looking at the time, but this means nothing to him. The fact that this kid is dead, Robbie has no problem with it. No fucking issue.
I think there is a societal obligation.
Okay, so you think the guy could have, you think he could have gone and tackled him?
Well, he's a 13-year-old kid. Can we pull the picture up of the child again that was posted by the middle school? The middle school that
this
he
local
attended?
News story says there were 3 of them.
Okay, that's who he shot and killed.
If there were 3 of them, Robbie, all the more reason for you to call the damn cops and not do it yourself.
That little boy sitting there at like 4'11", that child in an orange t-shirt and sneakers was shot and killed by someone because they didn't want their car taken.
Okay, so he should have tackled him. He should have fought with him over the I mean, people have died in this context in D.C. over in the context of cars being stolen. People get accidentally run over.
Which is why I would have stayed in my house and called the police.
Okay, and that is a perfectly legitimate decision to make, but the decision not to let them steal your car is also, I think.
Again, you don't even know if it was this guy's car. The report was that they were trying to steal cars. This person, we've seen stories like this before where people take vigilante measures on behalf of other people, which even
like
further,
the runner in the neighborhood, and that guy should be, those people were prosecuted and should have been. I agree.
Right. So the facts as they are that at least one 13-year-old. Who knows what the ages of the other people involved? Frankly, if they were older, it's even more tragic. The idea that he had been caught up with an older crowd, perhaps diminished responsibility.
The whole thing is very tragic. I mean, what are 13-year-olds stealing cars
but
at 4 a.m.?
I think it is.
This is the class divide. Robbie trying to figure out, why are 13-year-old boys stealing cars at 4 a.m.? Why does anyone steal a car? Obviously, they're stealing a car for one or two reasons. Either they need transportation that they do not have, or they're stealing the car to sell the parts, Robbie, because they need the money.
Not especially controversial to have an accounting of the value of property versus a life. And it should not be uncontroversial in our society to understand that it is much better to lose a car than to lose the life of anybody, but especially a 13-year-old child. And the problem with these kinds of shootings in this vigilante justice, or shootings at the part on behalf of the police, is that there is no trial, there is no ability to assess the context of what's been going on or mete out punishment in a way that actually fits the crime. It becomes a death sentence for anybody who affects your property. And I think the real problem in this society is valuing material things and property such that there's any conversation to be had at all about what it means for a family to have lost a 13-year-old child because somebody with a gun decided to start shooting in the dark indiscriminately.
Okay, that wasn't a choice just made in a vacuum. The initiating event, we don't know. We need to know more, but
I have to stop it there. We don't know. We need to know more, but he already told you what he thinks happened. And he already told you that the homeowner was in the right. Notice how Bree had to continue to say the boy's age. You know why that was done? Because oftentimes when people look at Black males, they see a man, even if he's 12, even if he's 11. That's why she keeps saying the age, to get it to resonate with Robbie, that he is a kid. But Robbie don't give a fuck. Robbie is like, look, someone's taking property. That's very important. You have a right to defend your property. We don't even know if it was their property, but Robbie's still going with that narrative because the life of that boy don't really mean shit to Robbie. At the end of this segment, he probably left and went about his day, just like he usually does. This is not his community. He's not affected. And this ain't the first time. This is not the first time I've seen him make these kind of statements about Black death. He did it again to Olami when she was on that show with a police brutality case. And he had that same attitude. I sincerely hope none of the family members of that little boy saw that segment. And I also sincerely hope that the producers of Rising make Robbie come back and issue an apology. Because Robbie let you know right then and there that property was more important than someone's life. Thank you for the super chat, Bryant. Property over life. You can get a new car. Homeowners insurance covers cars even when your car insurance does not cover the loss. There you go. But no, it's all about property. It's all about property. Now do you see why RBN is in this space? This is the voice people listening to. Terrible. Just absolutely terrible. Now I see why you guys wanted me to watch that video. No way I could have been on that. I could not have been on that story with him. All right, I am heading out, guys. All right, if you want more Sabby, I'll be live again on my channel in about an hour. I'm going to be talking to one of the Amazon organizers. Amazon Union organizers is coming on to talk about an update there. And I am going to also cover a couple other stories. So let's do that. All right, I am heading out. Have a good night. Try to have a good night after that story. Jesus. Let me answer this question here. I think I missed one. Mr. Marnez, why aren't you blaming the parents? Why is a kid that young at 4 a.m. you think they really shot because he was black? Yes. Such a dumbass question. That was so fucking stupid. And this one too. You're justifying theft. I'm black. I'm not interviewing before my gun go off. Don't steal. I'm not justifying theft of anything. I'm discussing the fact that you had someone sitting there on that panel that just told you that property was more important than that little boy's life. That's what I'm talking about. I can't believe you paid to say that. Get the fuck out of here. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.